Celebrate 15 years of transformative insight with Denison Forum by supporting our summer campaign. This year, we're not just marking an anniversary, we're gearing up to transform more lives with your help. Thanks to a generous $70,000 matching grant, every dollar you contribute will be doubled, making this the perfect time to maximize your impact. Head over to supportdf.org to make your donation today. When you give, you'll be part of developing fresh content through our daily articles, daily and weekly podcasts like this one, and insightful books. Don't let the opportunity to double your gift pass you by. Please visit supportdf.org right now and help Denison Forum launch into the next 15 years stronger than ever. Thank you.
It's Tuesday, June the 4th, 2024. Welcome to the Daily Article Podcast. Today's article is written by Dr. Jim Denison and narrated by Chris Elkins of the Denison Forum. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will speak to a joint session of Congress on June the 13th. The four congressional leaders issued their invitation on Friday, and he accepted over the weekend. However, President Joe Biden will not be in Washington on that date, as he is scheduled to attend the G7 summit in Italy. Between now and then, will the war in Gaza be over? Mr. Biden stated on Friday that Hamas is no longer capable of carrying out another large-scale attack on Israel, detailing a three-phase deal that would lead to release of the remaining hostages and end the nearly 8-month-long conflict. Mr. Netanyahu signaled cautious support for the initiative yesterday, stating that he is open to a temporary ceasefire to release hostages, but wants a free hand to resume fighting Hamas. The terrorist group counters that the two sides must agree to end the fighting now and wants written guarantees that Israel won't restart after an initial pause. However, Mr. Netanyahu insists that Israel must achieve all its war aims, which includes destroying the group's military and governing capabilities. Why? From the time Hamas staged its horrendous October 7th invasion, Israeli leaders have consistently insisted Hamas must be eradicated. As I've explained in the months since, Hamas cannot defeat the IDF militarily, but they can stage such persistent terrorist attacks on the Jewish population that the people abandon the country. In this way, Hamas can fulfill its charter mission to eradicate the nation. This is why, as one senior military official stated after October 7th, if we do not defeat Hamas, we cannot survive here. The root problem, however, as an Israeli friend explained in a podcast we recorded together, is that Hamas is an idea before it's a political party or a terrorist group. To defeat Hamas, Israel must defeat the idea of Hamas, the claim that Israel has stolen the land from its rightful Palestinian owners and is the enemy of all Palestinians. Israel must also find a peaceful way to share its tiny geography with Palestinians. As terrorism expert Audrey Kurth-Cronin writes in the current edition of Foreign Affairs, military force can degrade Hamas's hold on Gaza, but without a political solution to the underlying territorial dispute, the group would soon reemerge in some form and resume targeting Israeli military forces and civilians. End quote. While Israel is engaged in a political and military battle with Hamas that is ideological at its core, the Jewish state does not need to fear losing its own people to the ideology of its opponents. The Jewish people do a remarkable job of enculturating their worldview. From the time they are old enough to read, children in observant Jewish families begin learning the Torah. Their father is their first rabbi, and their family their first synagogue. After leading more than 30 study tours to Israel, I can testify that her Jewish citizens understand their national purpose and are united in preserving their nation and race. By contrast, young Americans are the least religiously affiliated generation in U.S. history, and many are being taught a revisionist view of American history that makes our country a colonizing oppressor whose founders sought to preserve and advance their personal and financial interests rather than the people they are purported to serve. In the opinion of longtime Harvard scholar Harvey Mansfield, the quote-unquote progressives who propagate this view have a quote, loathing for their country. It goes beyond embarrassment to real dislike of America, end quote. It is therefore naive for evangelicals to assume our children will adopt our biblical worldview simply because we do. They live in a secularized culture that does not accept the things of God, referencing 1 Corinthians 2, verse 14, because as we read in 2 Corinthians 4:4, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ. And as mission strategist and thought leader Alan Hirsch has stated, I found out the hard way that if we don't disciple people, the culture sure will. There is a battle going on for the future of our culture, unlike any we have seen in our nation's history. The Pride Month marketing and media campaigns aimed at young children and the rest of American society are just one example of the fact from Ephesians 6, verse 12, that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over the present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Author and professor Jean Edward Veith is right. Quote, true Christianity rejects cultural captivity. It posits a transcendental moral law that is above and beyond human laws and customs, giving a framework by which cultures can be judged. In so doing, transcultural Christianity has managed to shape and transform human cultures. The key is to be so filled by the transforming Spirit of God that we become the change we need to see. We reject, quote-unquote, cultural captivity only if, according to 2 Corinthians 10, verse 5, we take every thought captive to obey Christ by the power of the Spirit. Oswald Chambers asked, am I allowing my natural life to be slowly transfigured by the indwelling life of the Son of God? Then he explained, God's ultimate purpose is that His Son might be manifested in my mortal flesh. End quote. Thomas Ken prayed, direct control suggests this day all I design or do or say, that all my powers with all their might in thy sole glory may unite. Would you make his prayer yours today? We're grateful for our podcast listeners. If you find the Daily Article podcast helps you better understand today's news and cultural issues and then respond biblically, please rate and review the Daily Article podcast on the platform from which you subscribe. That helps people find and follow the Daily Article podcast.